Most people have been paying a mortgage for so long that they've completely forgotten what it feels like to own their full financial situation. They've normalized the weight. They carry it every single month without even noticing anymore, like a backpack they've been wearing since their 20s. But here's the thing, and this is what nobody tells you. The moment that weight disappears, everything changes. And I don't just mean your bank account. I mean everything. The way you think, the way you work, the way you make decisions, the way you sleep at night, the way you look at risk, the way you look at your career, the way you look at other people who are still in the game you just left. Everything changes. My name is Max, and today we're going to talk about what really happens once you've paid off your house. Not the surface level stuff you've heard 1,000 times, not you'll save money on interest. We're going deeper than that. We're talking about the psychological shift, the financial power move, and the life transformation that comes with full home ownership, and why most people completely underestimate it until they're standing right in the middle of it. Let's get into it. Part 1. The moment nobody prepares you for. Here's what's strange about paying off your mortgage. You'd think it would feel like a celebration, right? Like finishing a marathon. Fireworks, confetti, maybe a glass of champagne. And yeah, in the first few hours, there's something like euphoria. But then something unexpected happens. Silence. And not the comfortable kind at first. It's almost disorienting. Because for years, sometimes decades, your financial life has been structured around that payment. That number on the first of every month, your budget was built around it. Your income requirements were defined by it. Your job choices were influenced by it. Your stress levels were calibrated to it. And now it's just gone. Some people describe this moment as freedom. Others describe it as almost anxiety-inducing, like the GPS just turned off mid-journey. Because when the mortgage was there, it gave you a destination. Pay it off. That was the mission. And now the mission is complete, and you're standing there asking yourself, okay, what now? This is the first shift that nobody prepares you for, the identity shift. Because for a very long time, you were someone with a mortgage, someone working towards something, someone with a financial obligation that shaped their entire existence. And now you have to figure out who you are without it. But here's where it gets interesting. Because once the initial disorientation fades, and it does fade, what replaces it is something extraordinary, a kind of clarity that most people never get to experience, a bird's-eye view of your own financial life that you simply couldn't access when the mortgage was there, consuming your attention, your income, and your mental bandwidth every single month. And that clarity, that's where everything starts to change. Part 2. Your brain literally works differently now. Let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in personal finance circles, the cognitive load of debt. Debt is not just a financial burden, it's a psychological one, and the research backs this up. Studies have shown that financial stress, and specifically the stress of carrying significant debt, impairs cognitive function. It's like running too many apps on your phone at once. Everything slows down. Your ability to think clearly, to plan ahead, to make rational decisions. All of it takes a hit when a significant portion of your brain is quietly dedicated to managing financial anxiety. Now, for most homeowners, the mortgage is the biggest debt they carry, the biggest monthly obligation, the biggest "what happens if I lose my job" scenario. And because it's so big, it takes up enormous cognitive real estate even when you're not consciously thinking about it. So what happens when it disappears? Suddenly you've got processing power back. Space. Mental clarity you forgot was even possible. And this is not just poetic language. People who've paid off their homes consistently report that they feel sharper, more creative, more willing to take considered risks, more capable of seeing opportunities they were blind to before. Think about it this way. Imagine you've been listening to the same low hum in the background for 15 years, so constant, so ever-present that you stopped hearing it. It became part of your environment. And then one day, someone switches it off, and the silence is almost deafening at first, but then you start hearing things you hadn't heard in years. Birdsong, the wind, your own thoughts. That's what paying off your mortgage does to your mind. And this is why people who've done it often say they wish they had done it earlier. Not just for the math, for the mental freedom. For the ability to think about their lives from a position of security rather than obligation. Part 3. The cash flow revolution. Okay, let's get into the numbers, because this is where things get genuinely exciting. The average mortgage payment in the UK or the US, depending on when you bought and where, can run anywhere from £800 to over £2,000 a month. In expensive cities, we're talking even more. Let's use a conservative figure, £1,200 a month. That's £14,400 a year. That's the number that was leaving your account every single month, rain or shine, whether you had a great month or a terrible one. Now that money stays. But here's the thing most people miss. It's not just that you have £1,200 more per month. It's what that £1,200 represents in terms of income requirement. You know what I mean? When you had a mortgage, you needed to earn enough to cover it, plus tax, plus all your other expenses. But now, your baseline has dropped dramatically. The floor of your financial survival has lowered. And that has cascading effects on every financial decision you make from this point forward. Let's talk about investing, because this is where the real magic happens. £1,200 a month, invested consistently with an average annual return of 7%, which is historically conservative for a diversified portfolio, over 20 years becomes approximately £620,000. Over 25 years is pushing £780,000. You've essentially converted a liability into an asset-building machine. The same money that was going to a lender is now compounding for you. But it goes even further than that. Because when your baseline costs are lower, you can afford to take different kinds of financial risks. You can start that business you've been thinking about. You can take a lower paying job that you actually care about. You can say no to a client who's draining the life out of you. You can negotiate from a position of strength rather than desperation. This is what Max calls the security premium, the invisible return on being debt-free. It's not just the interest you save. It's the optionality you gain, the ability to make choices based on what you want, not what you need. And optionality in a world of uncertainty is worth more than most financial models will ever capture. Part 4. Your relationship with work transforms completely. This is the one that surprises people the most. When you have a mortgage, work is not optional. It is existential. Losing your job doesn't just mean losing income. It means potentially losing your home. It means missing payments. It means late fees, credit score damage, lender calls, sleepless nights. The stakes of employment are tied directly to the roof over your head. And because of that, most mortgage holders put up with things they shouldn't put up with. They tolerate bad managers. They stay in roles they've outgrown. They don't advocate for themselves as aggressively as they should. They don't quit when they should quit. Because the cost of quitting is too high. The risk is too great. Now, remove the mortgage. Suddenly, the worst-case scenario of losing your job becomes, I need to find another source of income. Full stop. Your home is safe. You own it. No one can take it. And that shift in the worst-case scenario changes everything about how you show up at work. You negotiate harder because you can walk away. You take on projects that excite you because you're not just trying to stay employed. You invest in your own development because you're playing a long game, not just trying to survive the month. You take the leap into entrepreneurship, consulting, freelancing, because the safety net is already there. It's called your paid-off home. There's actually a term for this in behavioral economics: threat rigidity. When people feel threatened, they become more rigid, more risk-averse, more resistant to change. When the threat is removed, they become more flexible, more creative, more willing to experiment. Paying off your mortgage literally removes one of the biggest existential financial threats most people face. And when that threat is gone, you become a different version of yourself professionally. A bolder one. Part 5. The social shift and why it's weird. Let's talk about something that nobody in the financial space really wants to touch: the social dynamics of being mortgage-free. Because here's the truth. Once you've paid off your house, you start to see things differently. Not in an arrogant way, not in a "I'm better than you" way, but in a way that quietly, fundamentally changes your relationship with the world around you. You start noticing how much of the social fabric is organized around financial anxiety. The conversations at dinner parties, the stress that drives people's decisions, the way people justify staying in bad situations because of money, the way lifestyle inflation happens, upgrading cars, houses, holidays, not because people want to, but because they feel like they're supposed to, like they're running on a treadmill they didn't design, and you're off the treadmill. This can be isolating in unexpected ways, because when you're no longer anxious about the same things your peers are anxious about, it's harder to relate. Conversations about mortgage rates, housing anxiety, financial pressure, they're no longer your reality. But it also creates an extraordinary opportunity, because you can become the person in your circle who shows people that there's another way. Not by preaching, nobody wants to be preached at, but by living it, by making decisions that reflect security rather than fear, by being the proof of concept that financial freedom is real and achievable and worth pursuing with everything you have. And that influence, it compounds too. The people around you start to think differently. They start asking questions, they start making different decisions, and you become a node of inspiration in your network, not because you told anyone what to do, but because you showed them what was possible. Part 6. The risks and the counter-arguments. Now look, Max wouldn't be doing this right if we didn't talk about the other side of this conversation, because there are legitimate counter-arguments to aggressive mortgage paydown, and you need to hear them. The first one is opportunity cost. The money you use to pay down your mortgage could theoretically be invested in the market. And historically, stock market returns have outpaced mortgage interest rates, especially when rates are low. So the math doesn't always favor aggressive mortgage paydown over investing. This is true, and it's an argument worth taking seriously. But here's what the pure math argument misses: human behavior. In theory, if you take the money you would have used to pay off your mortgage and invest it instead, you end up with more money. In practice, most people don't. They lifestyle inflate. They spend the extra cash. They invest inconsistently. The discipline required to actually execute the invest instead of pay off mortgage strategy is significant. And the behavioral benefits of being mortgage-free, the clarity, the reduced anxiety, the freedom, are real and have economic value, even if they're hard to quantify. The second counter-argument is liquidity. When you put extra money into your house, that money is locked up. You can access it through a remortgage or equity release, but that takes time and comes with friction, versus money in an ISA or investment account, which is accessible whenever you need it. This is also valid, and it's why the smartest approach is usually a combination: building a liquid emergency fund, investing consistently, and making extra mortgage payments when possible. It's not all or nothing. The third counter-argument is inflation. Your mortgage debt is being eroded by inflation over time. A £200,000 mortgage today is worth less in real terms in 10 years than it is now. So in an inflationary environment, carrying the debt can actually be beneficial. Again, true. But also, this argument only holds if you're deploying that capital productively elsewhere. If you're not, you're carrying the debt for free, but not actually benefiting from the carrying. The bottom line is this: the decision to aggressively pay off your mortgage isn't purely mathematical. It's personal. It depends on your income stability, your risk tolerance, your psychological relationship with debt, and what you plan to do with the freed up cash flow once the mortgage is gone. There's no universally correct answer. But for a huge number of people, the freedom of being mortgage-free unlocks a version of their life they couldn't access while they were still paying. Part 7. What to do. The moment the mortgage is gone, all right. Let's say you're there, or you're about to be there. What do you actually do next? First, you take a breath. Seriously, give yourself a moment to feel what you've accomplished. This is not a small thing. Most people never get here. You did. Let that land. Second, you resist the urge to immediately replace the financial pressure with something else. New car, extension, investment property. There will be time for all of that, but give yourself 60 to 90 days in the new reality before making any major decisions. Let your brain recalibrate. Let yourself understand what the extra cash flow actually feels like before you redirect it. Third, you get intentional about the freed up cash. What was your mortgage payment? Write that number down. Now decide, where does it go? This is one of the highest leverage decisions you will ever make, because you have an opportunity that most people don't. You have a significant amount of monthly cash flow that isn't earmarked for anything yet. And what you do with it in the next 12 months will shape the next 20 years. For most people in a post-mortgage position, a reasonable framework looks something like this. Top up your emergency fund to cover 6 months of expenses. And remember, your expenses are now lower, so this is easier than it used to be. Then maximize tax-advantaged accounts. ISA, pension, 401k, depending on where you are. Then consider investing in assets that generate income. Dividend stocks, REITs, rental property if it suits your situation. Then, and only then, think about lifestyle upgrades if there are things that would genuinely improve your quality of life. The key is intentionality, because the opposite of intentionality is drift. And drift, at this stage of the financial journey, is the biggest risk you face. You've done the hard work. Don't waste the momentum by letting the cash flow quietly disappear into a higher standard of living without a plan. Fourth, invest in yourself. This sounds cliche, but it isn't. With lower financial pressure, this is the moment to develop skills, build networks, explore side projects, maybe start the business you've been daydreaming about. The investment in yourself at this stage has an extraordinarily high ROI because you're operating from a position of security rather than scarcity. Here's the truth about paying off your house that nobody puts in the headline. It's not just a financial milestone, it's a philosophical one. It changes how you see yourself, how you see your time, how you see other people's choices, how you see risk and safety, and what a good life actually looks like. Because once the mortgage is gone, the transaction is over. You don't owe anyone anything for the roof over your head. And there's something profoundly human about that. Something that taps into a feeling that most of us in the modern world have been conditioned to ignore. The feeling of genuine ownership, of permanence, of standing on ground that is truly yours. It's not about the money in the end. It never really is. It's about what the money represents: security, choice, the ability to say yes to the things that matter and no to the things that don't, the ability to design your days around your values instead of your obligations. That's what changes when you pay off your house, not just the balance sheet, you. And if you're not there yet, Start treating it like the mission it is. Make extra payments when you can. Build the habit of sending money toward the principal every month, even if it's small. Because every pound, every dollar, every euro you knock off that balance is not just money, it's a piece of your future freedom, bought today. The version of you that's standing in that kitchen on a Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, no payment pending, looking at a number that's entirely yours, that version of you exists. It's not a fantasy. It's not reserved for the ultra-wealthy. It's waiting for you on the other side of a decision you can start making right now. If this video gave you something to think about, drop a comment below. Tell me where you are in your mortgage journey. Just started? Halfway? 6 months from the finish line? Let's talk. Hit subscribe if you want more content like this. We go deep on real financial strategy, real mindset shifts, and what it actually takes to build a life that's built on your terms, not your lender's. I'll see you in the next one.